All right, we're back. FAWKES News, big show for you today. Got a ceasefire in Ukraine, potentially. Will Putin play along? Let's talk about that. We got Jamie White, which is what we did a breaking news special on yesterday. Jamie White, very important murder to keep up on. This is very important. He's a journalist from Infowars. Anytime a journalist is assassinated or murdered, it is a big deal. We have to protect independent journalism. Journalists from every walk of the spectrum, journalists must be protected. It's vital to a democracy. But was he on a Ukraine hit list? We have some more breaking information. And what is the Ukraine hit list that everybody talks about? We'll talk about that. Will the next cyber attack will the next 9/11 be a cyber attack? We got to talk about that. And then also we have some Tesla bombing, some Tesla terrorism. In the midst of all the Tesla terrorism, Trump buys a Tesla. And then we are going to finish today off very funsy and cutesy with a JD Vance meme king. Is he the meme king? Was this attempt to make fun of JD Vance? Does it really play in JD Vance's cards? That is what we're going to wrap it all up with. But first, today's show is brought to you by Pig Latin, a seriously funny, true story. Here's some breaking news on the book. This is a book that I have written. It is a comedy about my life as a police officer. It's one of the first police comedies that's out there. This is a big major book deal with Simon Schuster. The book comes out August 26th, but it's on pre-order now. And if I sell amount of pre-orders on my own before Simon Schuster takes over marketing in July, I can get awarded a very hefty additional marketing bonus so that I can extend my book tour and I can come to all the cities or more cities that a lot of our listeners and viewers are in, and I can hang out with you guys. So we've been doing a thing about the email list, where is if you buy the book early, obviously you get the bookmarker with me, tasing a girl in the vagina, signed and autographed to me, sent to you if you pre-order the book. And then we have some other things where, that you can like and follow all of our social media and stuff, and you'll get another one. If you sell a third book, you'll get a fourth one. And then, there's ways to get the fourth is to collect all of them. But I'm going to wrap it up in a nice bow with you. Right now on Patreon, I have a thing called TANSEY Time on the Failure to Stop Patreon account. It's $3. It's less than a cup of coffee a month. TANSEY Time every single week. I have a new about 1 hour episode, but it's very deep into my life leading up to Pig Latin. It's a little more serious. The book is hilarious, but I think the book will be even more funny if you know how crazy my life was going up to the book. So the first episode was about my time in Special Forces Assessment and Selection, and I deep dive what it was like for me to go through Special Forces Assessment and Selected. And then my second episode that's coming out next week will be all about my time in the Special Forces Qualification course. And then, of course, what happened in the course that led me to getting out of the military and becoming a police officer, so on and so forth. So if you want to be a part of that, and then you will get all 4 bookmarkers, you have to pre-order the book too. But then you pre-order the book plus Patreon, you will get all 4 of these sent to you in the mail for the low cost of $3 a month to be a part of our Patreon. So head over to the Failure Stop Patreon, become a part of that. Today's show is also brought to you by ghostbed.com, factormeals.com, promo codes Wolfpack there, and Shieldbox. Promo code for Factor Meals is Wolfpack50. Today, I've got with me Deadleg, and I have Jason Kiefer from One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. Go ahead and jump into today's show. Got a live chat, boys. There's a live chat in the old YouTubes. Our YouTubes is growing. I remember when we first started this 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we had like 3 or 4 people in the live chats. Now we're consistently around 30, 40 people in the live chats. So it's just growing and growing, and I appreciate that. And why are we all in order tallest to lowest right now? That seems extremely strange. I want to give a shout out to Murph530, Will Cray, Tyler's. Oh, I wasn't complaining, Josh. I was not complaining. I thought it was funny. If you're not on our YouTube, then you wouldn't be able to see this, but it's actually funny. We're all this. Yeah, there we go. Now it's better. But we were all Murph530's in the chat. Super Bowl champion Eagles back with us today in the live chats. Hello. Good to you. Mike Dutcher. I don't know. Folk around and find out. Tyler S. Good morning, guys. Good morning. Elijah K. All right, guys. Listen, I want to get it. Mike Dutcher said, just finished the TANSEY story time on Patreon. It was awesome. Mike, thank you. Thank you so much. I need to go over there and see what people think about that. Do you think I should do? I mean, is it generally interesting? I'll do another one. Jill Billy's with us. Hello, Jill Billy. By the way, Jill Billy, I believe, is marrying Jason Kiefer allegedly this summer. Jill, I think you might be aware, if Jason hasn't told you, that prima nocta is in effect for the king of failure to stop, which so crazy was me. I didn't make the rules. Don't be mad at the rules. I didn't make them. I just happen to be the key. So I do have the first rights on the first night with Jill Billy. And hopefully I can give you a future king, just like back in the old Middle Ages. So
well, what? You definitely can. I know I definitely cannot. So
yeah, well, history
we might need to tag you in.
Oh man, we'll let you watch. Too many funs and games. Let's get into today's show. I want to start this because yesterday we finished off. We did an episode, just a quick one, myself and Josh, about the importance of media journalists being assassinated or being murdered. Now, we don't know if, in fact, Jamie White was murdered. Jamie White, if you don't know, is the Infowars journalist who was shot and killed on Sunday night, almost Monday morning, 11:30 at night. And we didn't get a lot. It was obvious traumas, what the news put out. And we talked about, how the police departments put out information into these things. Obviously, Alex Jones had a lot to say. We played that clip for you guys on yesterday's episode. You can go back and reference that. But some new stuff has come out that, in fact, Jamie was on a Ukrainian hit list, and we flirted with this yesterday. I said, I don't know. There hasn't been any articles about it. I'm not going to go through the list because the list is hundreds of thousands of journalistic names. But it would be wild if he showed up on this Ukrainian hit list, because other journalists doing the same type of journalism on the Ukraine war have ended up deceased in a short time frame. And so here we go. This is coming from this is coming from Big News Network. Of course, guys, I said this yesterday, and I showed you the Hindu Times and why I do that, right? Because if we go through CNN and we go through Fox, the articles are generally the same, except they have these slight sentences that make you want to sway to a certain side. So they'll say, the repugnant, disgraced Alex Jones said, right? Like, we don't need all of that opinion piece into what Alex Jones said, right? Whereas Fox News says, the sometimes correct conspiracy, we don't need all of that. Like, what did Alex Jones say? And then, we can kind of make up our own interpretations. But, these articles are so bastardized and propagandized with opinions that you don't really get to form your own opinion. So I like to go outside, and I just make sure whatever outside news source I have has the same general information that I can fact check, but it doesn't have all the opinion shit included into it. So that's why sometimes you hear me read from Hindu Times or Australian News, or like this one, the Big News Network. Again, I'm not going to read too much into what Big News Network is. Don't care. I'm not advocating for Big News Network. I read the article. It was minus all the opinionated pieces limitedly, and I thought it was a fair assessment. So that's the one I'm choosing to use. But let me go off of this. And of course, too, big mainstream media isn't going to talk or go into detail about a Ukrainian hit list because, well, it doesn't help the narrative of the Ukraine Israel global military industrial complex that
You're absolutely
right. It doesn't help funnel the money. And we know that all of these CNN, Fox News, all the big players are all funded in some way, shape, or form by these big global conflicts. And so with these smaller news networks, much like our own, shout out to FAWKES News, this is where you're going to get kind of that independent perspective versus the big machine perspective. So I hope you like that. FDNY 101202 says, just use Straight Arrow News. I'll check out Just Arrow News. I use a lot, man. If you've listened to the show, I always pull from different news sources every week, just so that we're always getting more perspectives. One that I really like is Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. I think that's very fair news. Don't always agree with the opinions of the facts on Breaking Points, but I always appreciate how they got the facts and how they show you the facts of the case before they give you their opinion piece.
I think it's a good habit to get into, because I do the same thing with One More. I find an article or a story, and I hit 4 or 5 different articles and see how they marry up to each other, and then how they're different. But then it creates talking points to where, oh shit, I didn't think about that, that perspective of it. So I mean, it creates good debate.
I like it. And then you don't have to waste your time. I do that for you. And it's a free show. So while you're on your way to work, or you're in your meat wagon, your patrol car, or, for you, FDNY, I'm sure you're in your little red wagon. You don't have to sit there and go through all the news clips to see, if everybody's saying the same thing or not. I kind of do it for you. So you're welcome for my service. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for your service there, FDNY. Always a big fan of the FDNY. The slain reporter Jamie White was on a Ukraine hit list. His colleague Alex Jones has claimed. By the way, I'm going to talk in detail what this Ukrainian hit list actually is in just a second. Jamie White, a senior editor for Infowars, was shot and killed outside his Austin, Texas apartment on Sunday night in what police and family believe to be a tragic incident. This is where it gets funny. The Austin Police Department reported that White, 36, was found with a gunshot wounds in the parking lot of his apartment complex shortly before midnight on Sunday. He was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead approximately 20 minutes later. Now, this is it. Investigators believe White interrupted suspects attempting to burglarize his vehicle, prompting them to open fire. The suspect fled the scene and no arrests have been made. Alex Jones Warren is brutally. Now, here's what they didn't tell you is that his car had been broken into previously in a short time frame. I just think that's a very weird. That is just a very strange theory. I wouldn't say strange theory. It's possible. It's possible that is a theory. However, it's a pretty wild theory. What are the odds that a very, how do you say it, John? Like, how would you put who he was, who White was, Jamie White?
He was very prominent in the research with
and problematic. He's uncovered a lot of stuff. He's a very inside journalist. He covers a lot of topics that are, wildly known to be assassinated for trying to uncover. When you're going up against George Soros-backed candidates, when you're trying to expose things like that, we've all made the jokes that's a great way to be assassinated. Yeah, assassinated. And here we go. We have one of those guys that he's the guy that just accidentally comes into the parking lot, and he's the one that the car burglars. Now, I was in law enforcement for quite a bit of time, and most burglars, they want to be quiet and they want to be quick and they want it to be easy. And if you take away any of those three, they fuck off.
I was going to say, in your experience, if somebody's breaking into a car and they get caught, typically they just run off, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So
they'll pull out a gun and start blazing.
Yeah, matter of fact, when I was a beat cop and I would go in and talk to people who were robbed or who were burglarized, I would often tell them, because they would always ask, right? Like, how do I prevent this from ever happening again? And I tell you this is my theory. This is what I came up with out of all my time serving in the military and all my combat experience and all my time working one of the hardest streets. This is my advice, my personal advice to you. And it goes back to a theory that I learned in the military called getting off of the axe, except I apply it something different, right? So in boxing and fighting and Muay Thai, when we take a strike, we get off the X or we get off the line, right? So if I jab and I move, you're now having to take one extra step to figure out where you're going to throw, or you're going to have to make a move, or, you're going to have to square up your shot, versus if I take a shot at you and I stay on the line, you have a direct blast right back at me. Okay. So getting off of the X means just getting off of that line. Even if you're not throwing a jab, you can get off of the X, you can get off of the line and you can back up on the line. And so I tell you to get off of the X. Like if you're at a ATM machine, you're getting money and some guy circles around you. Remember, I told you robbers and burglars, they want to be quick, they want to be easy, and they want to be quiet. So they're driving around and you got those goosebumps right there, hair on the neck, your stands up. They're walking up, they got the hoodie on. Immediately start yelling at the machine like, what do you mean I don't have any money? This is bullshit. Are you freaking serious? This isn't the right pen? What? Oh, dude, this is ridiculous. And you just start going nuts on this ATM machine. Well, one, it's saying you don't have any money. Two, you're no longer quiet. And three, you're off the X. They're now like trying to figure out where they were going to come up to you, pull the gun out, tell you not to say a word, not to open your mouth, or they're going to shoot you. They've now lost all of that. They're now having to play defense, and most likely they're going to go away. So if somebody's robbing a car and it's no longer quick, quiet, or easy, they're usually going to leave. Why would they try to make breaking into a car louder and draw more attention, especially if it's a target-rich environment? Because oftentimes when you have one break-in, you have 15 break-ins, especially in an apartment, because they're going to go through door to door to door. Oftentimes they get caught. We'll even patrol the area. What do you think that they do when we're done patrolling the area 3 hours later? They still come back to the target-rich environment because they've driven an hour from out of town. They've already canvassed. They already know all the ins and outs of this apartment complex. They've already put the plan into motion. And so maybe they left for a minute, but they're like, I don't want to go. Yeah, let's just go back. The cops are gone. Let's go back. And we got away with it the first time. So they're not going to just blow the joint by pow, pow, pow and shooting this guy. It's just not. It's plausible, but it's not probable. It's probably more than that. And so going back to this article here, that's what I thought was funny, is that that's what they're saying. They're just writing it off. It's such an easy thing to write off, but I don't think that that's the case. I think that's too easy. I think they're not covering their trails here. Or was it a Ukrainian hit team made it to look like car burglars? That's where I'm like, isn't this murder Travis County DA Jose Garza's fault for, let me go back. Alex Jones mourned his brutally murdered colleague, blaming White's death and part of the policies of Soros-backed Austin District Attorney Jose Garza. He also recalled that White had been featured on Ukrainian Enemy List, suggesting the possibility of a more complex motive behind the killing. In this murder, Travis County DA Jose Garza's fault for allowing crime to flourish in Austin, or was it Ukrainian hit team made to look like car burglars? The outspoken right-wing commentator said in the broadcast on Tuesday. So I played you what his broadcast was on Monday. So now he's all in on this whole thing. Last June, White himself addressed the matter, claiming he had been listed as an enemy of Ukraine due to his work at Infowars. So here's the article that we were waiting for yesterday. Last June, White himself addressed the matter, claiming he had been listed as an enemy of Ukraine due to his work at Infowars. Now, I want to jump over to something else. I want to jump over from this article to another article coming from the New York Times. And this is an article that was written back in June 5th, 2016. It's in the private chat if you want to throw it up, Josh. This was by Andrew E. Kramer, who is a Pulitzer Prize. He's a reporter. He's based out of the Russian New York Times, the New York Times Russia media sector, I guess you would call it, of the New York Times, right? They have journalists in all these other countries. He's the one that's in charge specifically of Russia. Now, this was in June 2016. All right, so this is like right around that time frame. Burisma, all the Hunter Biden dealings are starting to kind of come to light. Of course, Russia collusion, all that stuff is starting to come to light. So this was very early on, pre-Ukraine war, the leadings up to the Ukraine war. This is what Andrew E. Kramer wrote. And if you remember, 2 or 3 years ago, I did a podcast, if you've been following that long, on the Failure to Stop, where I was when we were just doing all of the news on Failure to Stop. You remember I did a whole piece on journalists being kicked out of Ukraine for exposing what people in the Crimea or the Dunbar province, what's that?
The Donbass region or whatever.
The Donbass region, yeah. And what they were getting their perspectives, right? And they were getting wrapped up, rolled up, some of them thrown in Ukraine jail for a minute. But then they were like banned. And well, so actually Kramer was one of those reporters, one of those journalists, again, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, getting wrapped up. And both sides do this. If Julian Assange, this is what happened to Julian Assange through the Bush and Clinton administration, which again is more proof that the Clintons and the Bushes, the Dick Cheneys and the Kamala Harris, they're all one bird, right? Because they all equally, the Clintons pretended like they were not that they were, the Bushes were super pro-war, and the Clintons kind of in the aftermath were kind of like, oh, the Bushes are kind of crazy and they're all kind of pro-war. But then at the same time, Hillary Clinton herself, had this proposition of maybe we just blow up Julian Assange to get him to stay quiet, because he was exposing the same thing that American journalists are exposing from Russia doing to Ukraine. So the same things that Russia does to Ukraine is what Julian Assange was exposing of Americans doing to Iraqis. Basically, what I would call accidental war crimes. war is ugly. Again, I don't agree with the opinions of the facts that Julian Assange had, but I respect the amount of journalism and time and effort to gather those facts that Julian Assange did. So here we go. This is an article written in 2016 from the New York Times. He says, this is from Andrew E. Kramer, live from Ukraine. I have had guns pointed at me. I have slept in shipping containers, and I've walked past the corpse of shelling victims since the separatist insurgency in eastern Ukraine began 2 years ago. Again, so now we're talking about 2014. If you really want to know the history of the Ukraine conflict, a lot of you don't. You just pick a side and you go with it. You don't want to hear anything else. Again, I'm not a Russian sympathizer. I just think it's important to know the totality of the circumstances so that we can come up to a peace agreement. Victims since the separatist insurgency in Ukraine began 2 years ago, but I had never been blacklisted as a terrorist before. So when my name recently appeared on a terrorist list of journalists published by a website with close ties to the Ukrainian government, I viewed it with a mix of trepidation and sarcasm. Trepidation because it suggested powerful people in Ukraine, a democracy that aspires to free flow of information, were going after me and others on the list for simply doing our jobs, reporting both sides of the war, including the pro-Russian rebel side. And sarcasm because this being Ukraine, the list was not likely to have much credibility elsewhere. I have not, for example, had any trouble flying after appearing on what may be the world's first list of terrorist journalists. Now, this is the same list that Jamie White was allegedly on. It is also not a secret that I and other reporters have reported from rebel territory. Our publication and broadcast outlets regularly use our names and note where we are. The list published by Ukrainian nationalist website called Myro Troverts, and you can Wikipedia that if you'd like. It's MYROTVORETS, or the Peacemaker, appeared to have been born out of simmering frustration. Now, if you go and you look up Myro Troverts, it's a Russian word. I don't know how to pronounce it because I'm C-my student at best, but you will see that it was in great length. The problem with this site is that it literally not only listed Russian sympathizers, but it almost kind of like called for some kind of punishment towards them. So like it would be like a list of people who supported Trump, and here's their addresses and everything about them. So if you don't like Trump and you want to reach out to these people who directly support Trump, here's their addresses. You get how serious this can become. Hardliners in Ukraine have been furious at the foreign press for some time now, arguing that any coverage of the rebels from their home base in the East played into Russia's powerful propaganda machine. Russia has portrayed residents in the breakaway regions as victims of unjustified Ukrainian military assault by Western-backed fascist government of Kyiv. Now, this is even going back again to 2015, when everything that was publicized by real journalists, by New York Times journalists at that, if it all had the perspective or any other narrative other than Russia is terrible and they've invaded Ukraine, all of a sudden they are Western-backed fascists. They are Russian sympathizers, and they're part of the propaganda machine. And, we know that's not true. Was Julian Assange pro-terrorist? Was he part of the terrorist propaganda machine? No. If you look at the facts that Julian Assange presented, they were things that we should really, really question. These are things that really happened, that he has direct, conclusive evidence pointing to accidental or not war crimes being committed in Iraq. And if you're going to stop these things, you have to have both sides of the story. You have to have your warmongers in a war, and you have to have your people that are kind of on the anti-version of the war reasonably, so that you can be held somewhat accountable, so that we don't have savagery in war. If that's the way the world wants to do war. I guess there are a number of opinions on that. But shortly after this list came out, a very prominent journalist was actually murdered right after this. It was a real big deal. So this list is kind of a big deal. And then we go back to Jamie White. It would be a big deal if in fact he was on this list, and it's definitely something to look into. And I think if you're one of the conspiracy theorists out there, the conspiracy factious, whatever you want to call yourself, you can't not be excited, or maybe it's excited, it's not the right word, maybe it's not empathetic enough, but you would have to be jazzed up, vindicated about this kind of excuse that he was just murdered in the parking lot because and here's another thing, like, how do you show up to your car out of all the cars in an apartment complex and your car happens to be the one that's being broken into and you just happen to be a different, I don't want to say anti-Ukraine, that's like saying anti-vaxxer, and we're not anti-Ukraine, but we're questioning on what some of the motives are and tactics are. And that goes into our next story, which I'll jump into right now, which is a ceasefire that Trump is trying to establish in Ukraine after that extremely heinous meeting that he had at the White House that led to another story we have today about the meme war that's going to go on. But we do now have the ceasefire talks that have been widely disputed, which we've talked about here on the show before, and we'll talk about why here in a second. Widely disputed because the war machine doesn't want peace. But now we've got the cards in Putin's table that he's up for negotiations. That's actually what negotiation means. Like, one person has some terms and then another person agrees to those terms. So it's, you know what I mean? Like, the media likes to point this out as like Russia's doing something, again, nefarious by reading the terms of condition.
They're holding back. Like, the press is acting like, Putin's just not even going to hear it.
Right. It takes time to read these negotiations, just like when you're buying a house or a car or anything else. Before we do that, today's show brought to you by ghostbed.com. Sleep so good, it's scary. We have been with Ghostbed for years and years and years, and absolutely love them. Use the promo code Wolfpack. But the deal, that 40 to 50% off site-wide on a beds made in America, and these are not normal beds. These are not run-of-the-mill, mass production, crazy, weird. These are like beds made right here in America. I've been to the facility. I've been to the research lab. I mean, like, the pillows alone are proof in the pudding that this is like a technology way beyond anything you've ever seen. It's kind of like the difference between buying a granola bar at the store, which is chock full of all the garbage, all the fake ingredients and all the oils and seed oils, but kind of promoting to you that it's somehow healthy, versus like some kind of real, packaged hiking nutrients or something like that that actually has nutritional value to it, and not just like corn syrup and all this other stuff that would drive anybody mad crazy and fires up the ADHDs and all the other things that are problems in this world. But Ghost Bed is like a real deal bed with real deal sleep technology built into it. And that's why I love my Ghost Bed. It's not a gimmick, not way, shape, or form. They have the zero gravity massage modes. Look, I've trained jujitsu and Muay Thai multiple days a week, sometimes 4 to 5 days a week. I'm getting punched in the face almost daily at this point. I'm getting rolled up and smooshed into a pretzel, and I'm over 40 years old. The way I survive this is, one, by laying on my Ghost Bed and my Ghost Bed pillow, but two, by having that zero gravity massage. They also now have a massage topper, which I'm going to make a video for you guys today and put it on my social medias of what the massage topper is. So if you can't afford the big giant $2,000 bed or $1,500 bed, maybe you can afford the $500 or less if you use our promo code bed topper that you can lay down. And it's just a very therapeutic thing. It cracks your back, so it fills up with air. So it's zero gravity. It's like, it's not zero. The bed is zero gravity, but basically there's no like hard things like punching in the back. It's using air to massage your back. So it's not very abrasive, but then it will inflate, like it will inflate one shoulder blade while deflating the other. And it creates like your shoulders to kind of pop, which is what I love. Greg LaMontagne says, we have the Ghost Bed pillows, but not the bed. We need the full set. You do. The sheets, everything about it is so wildly above. And I always say mental health and mental wellness starts with a good night's sleep. Invest in your sleep and do it today, because they are switching up the whole game come April. That's insider information that I got. They didn't say I couldn't put it out, but they didn't tell me to put it out. But I think that 40 to 50% deal might go away. And I don't know where I stand with Ghost Bed at the end of the day. It was almost like an ominous warning of like, hey, we're switching a lot of things up. A lot of these things are going to happen. And so we'll reconvene and talk about, the sponsorship deal and the whole 9 yards. So right now, head over to ghostbed.com, use the promo code Wolfpack, and get you sleep so good, scary. All right, let's talk about the ceasefire and the negotiations in the ceasefire. I'll throw it over to you. One, guys, Josh and Jason, with a ceasefire on the table, do you think it's possible that Trump lands, even amidst the UK and NATO trying to go behind Trump's back and America's back to keep the war going? which is wildly bizarre. Do you think we have a chance for a 30-day ceasefire between Ukraine and Putin, or is there going to be too much outside interference from people like Canada, of all people, the UK, of all people, into keeping this war going?
Because correct me if I'm wrong, part of the ceasefire deal is we're actually going to start giving them some aid back. That's part of the deal. So in the next 30 days, we're going to help out like whatever that little interim needs to be. But we had France and the European, like all these countries want to put boots on ground. The problem is when like in the history of our country, every time that there's a global conflict, we get involved and then we finally get it taken care of. We try to stay out of it. We try to stay out of it. We try to stay out of it. Then we finally get provoked and then we have to take care of it. This is one of those ones where we're kind of involved with it. We don't want to be involved with it. We definitely don't want to be involved with it. We want to stop being involved with it. And the rest of the world's like, hey, well, we kind of want to poke this war thing. So it's one of those, are we checking the pulse of just not only Ukraine and Putin, or are we checking the pulse of this the deep state that we keep talking about, this inside trading, and everybody just wants to keep funneling money through to just keep this wars going? Is this that big challenge? Is that what it is? And then is it Trump versus the EU? Then that's the question I start to have.
And it's funny. I think we've talked about it before, but there's a lot of people that don't want it to end, because then their funds dry up. They lose their personal investments, and I'm using that heavy in air quotes, investments. They're the ones that they think they're going to get screwed. Never mind all the people that are dying needlessly. But I think Trump, I also think Trump can get at least a 30-day ceasefire to like have a talk, try to start figuring things out. Right, wrong, or indifferent, him and Putin have a good diplomatic demeanor, friendship, whatever you want to call it. Now, he gets blasted for that because, he talks to Putin. Oh my God. But if anybody can do it, and this is not me being a Trumper, I just think he's got a good business sense about him. Hey, let's look at both sides. What are the pros? What are the cons? And let's stop your people from dying. Let's stop their people from dying. Let's figure out how to make this work. But I agree, when you got UK coming in, and everybody else, that muddies the waters big time.
Well, what also muddies the water is that all the government contracts. We have a huge government contracts from contractors, boots on the ground contractors, all sorts of contractors on the ground in Ukraine. And of course, that's what we saw in Iraq. Government contractors ruling everything, Blackwater, Triple Canopy, all these things. I want to go back to this post from Corn Pop, where he says the 30-day ceasefire is a rearmament for Ukraine, no benefit to Russia, and I don't see what they gain by agreeing. Yes, and in fact, it could be a 30-day rearmament, 30-day rearmament for Ukraine. But let me ask you this, Corn Pop, because you also made another comment about NATO. So without NATO support, Russia would have trampled Ukraine. I think Russia would have trampled Ukraine regardless, if they really wanted to. I think the American propaganda government makes you think that Russia's a lot weaker than they really are. Maybe I'm wrong, but what is the end game if nothing else but peace? Because here it is. We know that, guys, let's be real. Let's be real for a second. Nuclear war is not on the table. There's no scenario in which we win nuclear war. Also, there's no scenario in which we win going over and starting a direct conflict with Russia and with China. The war of attrition, we would lose by attrition alone. We don't have the manufacturing capabilities that we had in World War II to manufacture weapons, and the amount, and China's never stopped. China is the leading producer in all of these things. They have all the munitions. North Korea has lots of munitions. They've spent their entire economy on building up munitions alone and conventional armament alone. There is no way in scenario in which we can resupply that region in a direct conflict with Russia having North Korea and China involved in a conflict like that. And so then if you can't win that way, then you would the other only option you could win by, well, there's two choices. You could go nuclear or you could go cyber. Which is actually another talking point that I have today was, will the next 9/11 be a cyber attack?
You have any idea how many bottle rockets China has? They've got a ton of bottle rockets. They would definitely win. They'd win the July 4th war, hands down.
Yeah, so we would, at a conventional standpoint, you would, and we don't have a nuclear option. There's no nuclear option on the board. I believe that Trump knows that and understands that. I believe that Trump isn't, a crazy and deranged guy where he thinks nuclear is on the table, especially when I know that there are cyber. We haven't even started into this whole cyber war thing. Why don't you think we haven't had a massive cyber attack that has really, really shut down a monumental portion of any civilized country? It's because it's like nuclear. The powers that be and the heads that be have come to the table and decided we're maybe not going to do this, because if it was on the table, they would have already probably done it. But it's still an option, right? And it's not a nuclear option, but it is almost effectively today's newest nuclear weapon. Imagine the amount of damage you can do to a city by shutting it down completely of its computers. The war, Putin even said, what did Putin say years ago? That this war, the next war will be won. World War III will be won in ones and zeros. Didn't he say that? You want to fact check me on that? Or do we all agree that he said that?
I remember hearing something to that effect, but nobody wins a physical nuclear war. And all of these leaders know that. Nobody's going to win. So yeah, Russia launches one, we're launching one, and it's terrible for everybody, and they know that. So I believe diplomacy will work its way through. It just may not be as fast as people want it to, or the way people want it to be.
I just have one question. Why is it a problem to have a diplomatic relationship when it's Trump and Putin, but when it's Putin hanging out at George Bush's ranch, we got no problem with that at all? That's perfectly fine.
Sure.
I want to know why. It's because right now we're trying to stop the money. This is the hill that I will die on. If you follow the money, follow the problem long enough, you'll find the money. You'll find out where the source is. This is all. How many billions of dollars have we sent over there that we have no account for where it's going, who it's going to? How many times has we've sent over there and we found millions of dollars in someone's top drawer of their bedroom? This isn't anything new. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We don't want our money. We don't want, what investment does us being involved with this, with the United States, with Ukraine and Russia, what does the United States have any benefit to do with any of this? Nothing. Maybe because the last president's son was on the board of some company over there. Maybe let's
look at the bigger picture, because right now we have global conflicts everywhere, to include Ukraine. Imagine if Trump treated Netanyahu the same way that he treats Zelensky. I think this is a very good talking point. Tucker Carlson and then brought it up that Netanyahu is trying to go to war with the entire Middle East. And so, what is the end goal here? If you're looking at this, the totality of this situation, if you're looking at it from 35,000 foot view, you've got Netanyahu wanting America to help back his whole entire war with the Middle East. Who does Netanyahu want to go to war with? I mean, say something. How about this? Who is Netanyahu not trying to go to war with in the Middle East? That would be, that would be the question, because you put a pin on the map of the Middle East and Netanyahu's got a problem with him, right? So where does that conflict end? If it begins, and it has begun, and of course, who has backed Iran and the ties to Russia and China and that whole backdoor side of things? Then we can go over to Saudi Arabia and India, and we're talking about massive global conflict right now. We're on the brink of all of this. There is only one option, and that is to talk peace. And I don't understand why it is in no one's interest to allow any peace talks or any kind of talks with Putin or any kind of negotiations, knowing that the end goal is either massive cyber attack. I'm talking nuclear level cyber attack that shuts down grids and people freeze to death and starve to death. We're talking about, oh God, I hope not, nuclear war. But there's nothing really that comes out of these conflicts except massive, massive loss and casualties. So the fact that no one wants to bring to the table peace talks shows you that this whole thing is a ploy. It's a smoke and mirrors to keep a small little proxy war going, trickling it along, just kind of giving a little give and take and drawing this thing out so that everybody can keep making money from it. They don't really want it to expand into a full global war because they know that's the end, but they don't want the war to go away either. And that is the point. That is the whole point. And so as you're looking at these peace talks with Trump, which I hope, wow, I hope that's what we voted for, right? That was my big ticket, was Trump had no new wars, that Trump was actually anti-war. And it's bizarre to me that liberals don't want to give that a chance. It's bizarre to me that the far left is just like, what do you mean? We have to have all of these wars. We have to be,
Well, it's also because Orange Man's trying to stop it. And that's just don't want anything to do with Orange Man, period.
Right. And it's what the propaganda media, the Dick Cheney, George Bush, the Bill Clinton media feeds them, is what they want to go on. That's the narrative that they always take, right? Like, hands up, don't shoot. Like, they knew the evidence was that didn't exist. And yet they still cling to that. American people still cling to that propaganda, or the anti-police movement when they bring out the Breonna Taylor case, knowing the facts of the case were so retarded and so bastardized and so misleading and wrong. Even after the media went back and apologized to him, nobody ever adopted the truth of the matter. That's also happening in the Daniel Holtzclaw case, which we're starting that project here very soon, the Free Holtzclaw case, where Daniel Holtzclaw is an innocent man that's been in prison due to massive media influence, investigative biases, and manipulation of evidence, where there was no evidence that shows that Holtzclaw was any way, shape, or form guilty of any of those crimes. Matter of fact, he's the opposite of guilty. He was a man amongst men. He was an example to others of how you should be as a man in your early 20s, trying to make it through this life. Even at his time as a football player, he was very noble and admirable, and yet the media continued to lie about him. But people bought into the narrative, and even now that they know, even after the victims themselves said, we were lying, we did this because we felt bad for this black girl and because we're racist. I mean, they didn't say we're racist, but they said because of the narrative, because we just thought that nobody was standing up for black women, and so we lied about it to be on her side. Like, even though they said that, this man is still sitting in prison for a 200-year sentence on a crime he did not commit. It's bizarre and bonkers, and nobody will take it. And the pussy FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, won't pick up the case because it's of sexual assault allegations. It doesn't look good. So now we have a man in prison because it doesn't, and nobody's fighting for him because, quote unquote, it doesn't look good. But that is the American people, and that is the propaganda way, is that they'll just go with whatever the media is feeding them. And so now we're all of a sudden pro long-term war, even though the left was completely anti the long-term global war in Iraq. So interesting.
How do the optics look? That's the question that's always asked. How do the optics look? And which side of the optics do I want to be on?
Because you want to talk about like a deep state. When since World War II has the United States not been involved in a conflict? When have we not?
You can go before, but just in America's existence, period. We've never not had a war going on.
Yeah, but we didn't kill a sitting president, allegedly. Like, that was
arguably
was going to come out and say, "Hey, this is what's going on." So, like, you got to think the people that are going after Trump for just. Why? Are you encouraging death? If that's the case, okay, but just say that's why it is. Don't go, I don't like Trump because I don't like Trump. Well, Trump's trying to help you. You can not like him and still like, okay. There's things that Obama did that I didn't like, but I was like, I didn't like him as a president, but some things I was like, okay, you'd say the same thing about every president is like that. But why would you want to stop this? Or why would you not want to stop this? It's because you're getting paid. That's the only reason. And if you can't come up with a better reason, I'm all ears. The entire world is all ears. Why should this conflict of war where people die, why should it continue? That's a simple question. And if you don't have a simple answer, then we need to stop it. And if you don't want to stop it, then get off your ass And wherever you're at here in the United States going, I stand with Ukraine. I stand with Ukraine. Well, get on a plane and stand your ass up and go over there and do something.
I saw an article that that the National Guard, the Ukraine National Guard, is accepting foreign volunteers. So hey, there you go. There's your chance to head over to Ukraine. Speaking of big terrorism, and is not the next 9/11 going to be a cyber attack? This is going to be a fun conversation to have for the next few minutes. And then I want to go into the JD Vance Meme King stuff here. But today's show also brought to you by factormeals.com/Wolfpack50 meal planning to the next level. You see that I'm getting lean and mean, baby. I'm looking good. A lot of you got, well, I don't think I'm looking good. I think I look like a middle-aged 40-year-old man, but a lot of you guys have been commenting on the recent wedding that I attended and how nice I looked and how fit and in shape I am. Mainly that's because I train a lot, but also because I have a good diet. And Factor Meals was a big part in helping me get my diet under control. It's meal planning to the next level, so you're not eating all the trash. These are chef-prepared, fresh, and never frozen meals delivered right to your door. You can go calorie conscious, you can go protein heavy, you can go vegan, vegetarian, whatever you want. You can do breakfast and dinner, breakfast and lunch, lunch and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can do just lunch or just dinner. Whatever meal plan you need to get you through your workday so that you're not having to go out to all the fast food restaurants and, one, spend all that extra money, and two, it's stuff that's really not good for you with all the fried stuff and all this crazy stuff. You can have a meal plan that fits you. Don't have to go to the grocery store. You don't have to cook your shrimps over here and then cook your something over here and some of them find the lids and the Pyrex dishes and find all the lids to these things and all the mix mash and doing all that. These come pre-packaged right to your door, fresh, never frozen. They're not frozen. They have a little refrigerated cooler. It's really nice. And the cost is a wash. It's the same as if you were to drive to the grocery store, if you were to slip up and get your McDonald's once a week, all that stuff. This is a very proficient, monetarily proficient way of meal planning. I love it. Josh, you're in on the Factor meals as well. So go to factor75.com, use the promo code Wolfpack50, get you looking good before the springtime hits, and we're all going to be hitting the pools and the spring bakes. Now's a great time to get that diet started so that you're looking good this summer by 4th of July. What about snacks? Do they have snacks? They do. They do have snacks. They have shakes. They have smoothies. They have all sorts of stuff. Head over to the website. Go to factor75.com. If it looks interesting to you, use the promo code Wolfpack50 and you can get you a discount. All right, let's talk about cyber terrorism really quickly. I want to talk about this because not only do we have a mass cyber attack on Elon's X or Twitter this week, which is a really big deal, folks. Here's why it's a big deal. This is why you should pay attention. Here's why it's a big deal. What's the number one platform right now for free speech? Where can you write the F word? Where can you write, I don't like X, whatever, Y and Z? What's the only platform where freedom of speech generally exists? That's right. Jason, you hit the nail on the head. You're not as dumb as most firefighters, or as dumb as we thought you were. I'm kidding. Yes, you're right. Twitter, X, right? So now we have they didn't directly attack Facebook, right? Now, are they attacking X because of Elon's opinion on the Ukraine war? Oh, that would be very interesting because Elon believes that this IP address from the cyber attack originated in Ukraine. Now, I have a problem with that. I don't think Ukraine wants to piss off America anymore. I think, if anything, they want to be back in the good graces of America. So I can't imagine what kind of threat this would be. Also, if I was going to go with that theory, I would want to believe that Russia was probably closer to doing this. For example, the 23andMe, I know that my family originated TANSEY. The TANSEY fams originated in Northern Ireland, or Roscommon, Ireland. And that is on Roscommon, like right near the border of England. And so my ancestry.com thing has a big giant yellow circle, and half of the circle is in England and the other half of the circle is in Ireland. So, if it's the same kind of search, right, where it just gives you a big yellow circle, could it not border Russia and Ukraine? And so then you could fairly say that it came in Ukraine. Now, I don't know. I don't know where the circle came from. I just find it highly unlikely that Ukraine caused a cyber attack on X. But as we saw the first articles that we talked about, Jason, Ukraine does not like reporters or anybody else giving out any information other than the pro-Ukrainian narrative. What are your thoughts on this cyber attack? More specifically, do you think the next major shutdown, the next major attack will be more like another 9/11 attack, or do you think it'll be a mass cyber attack?
Oh, because Ukraine's never false flagged anything during this. Nord Stream pipeline, the truck that blew up on the bridge. Like they've never done something and go, look what Russia did. Wait. And then 30 seconds later, like, hey, the guy that set the thing on fire still has fire in his hands. Like for the cyber attack too, real quick, Keith, like if you don't think it's happening, how many times in the last couple of years have we reported 911 systems went down in this major city for a period of time? 911 system went down in this major city for this period of time. Communications went down for this major city. ACAR system for the FAA has went down. We've had the ground planes because this airport has had an attack. This area lost. Verizon is down for the entire. These are all tests. It's not if it's a glitch, it's a glitch. But if it's not a glitch, it's someone overtly doing something to cause this.
It's many people and many different organizations / I'll just say countries, whatever. Go back and look. You remember when I believe it was, and I can't quote it, but I believe it was Bank of America had a huge shutdown. All their systems froze. People couldn't get their money for like a day and a half. That was years ago. This stuff has been ramping up, and every day, there's well over millions of cyber hacks every single day. How many times, anybody that's listening or watching, how many times have you had to reset your password? All these little things are adding up. All this is data collection for a bigger deal. The government has already started U.S. Cybercom. I was not familiar with it, but it's a division of the DOD, NSA. They have people that can do their own offensive hacking. And it was an interesting read, but they're saying there's a couple different characteristics of a cyber attack. You've got physical attacks that shut off or damage some aspects of critical services, financial, which we've seen here, and then disinformation, which I found that one amusing because we see that every day on the internet, and we all live on the internet.
DDoS attacks.
But how much misinformation are you fed? All of these things where it may not be, your password getting stolen, but they're implanting little things out to you. But I do believe, Eric, to answer your question, yeah, I think that's the way this is going to go. And I think there's going to be infrastructure failure, whether it's electric grids, financial, 911, all of these things, I think are going to come to a culmination, and it's not going to be pretty.
You're right, and I don't think that we should overlook the fact that they went after X specifically. Again, there are a lot of people that don't like our free speech, to including our own government. Our own shadow government, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. They don't want the free speech. They want the propaganda news to go on. So it's no surprise to me that they went after X. This is from Cyberscoop, by the way. This article is written by a guy who is actually very familiar. His name is Matt Capko. He's been in cybercrime, ransomware, software vulnerability. This is like his passion. This is his whole thing is cyber crimes. This is an article he wrote for Cyberscoop. But in the article, second paragraph down, says Elon Musk, the site's owner, described the incident as a massive cyber attack, but did not provide any evidence, and threat researchers have yet to back up that claims. DDoS attacks are malicious, overwhelming targeted systems with traffic, but they do not involve unauthorized access, data theft, or encryption. The hallmarks of the more serious and potentially damaging cyber attacks. We're not sure exactly what happened, and was what Musk told Box, but on Monday's interview. But there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area. Now I saw on here that IP addresses are, I'm not so familiar with them. I know that they can be changed with the VPN. I did know that, but I didn't know, as Greg from the Bar is Open with Beth and Greg podcast is where I get all my fun news and all my TMZ style kind of society and culture news from. I love that podcast, Bar is Open with Beth and Greg. But he says that IP addresses are actually specific. I did not know that they were that specific.
The VPN just scrambles it.
Right, he just scrambles it. But I would have to guess that Elon Musk is probably a lot smarter than I am when it comes to IP addresses. I don't think he would not know what an IP address is or how VPNs work. But he told Fox News regardless. What's that?
I could explain the two different, because one would be like a hack and you're trying to get the information, and what a DDoS is so like when you go to let's say you go to Failure to Stop's Patreon. When you go to Patreon to request to listen to that, that is a request for information. If Jason does that, Jason's also requesting information. If Eric does that, Eric's also requesting information. So those servers that all this information is living on, it's like, okay, I'm going to give this information to Josh. I'm going to give it to Jason. I'm going to give it to Eric. Well, if you inundate that server with requests for information, just pinging, hey, what time is it? Simple things like that, just overwhelming it. It doesn't have the ability to bandwidth to deal with all the traffic. You can shut the servers down by overloading them. So that's what this DDoS attack is. It's not necessarily hacking your information to like get your social security number or anything like that. It's just to overwhelm the system to where it'll shut down. And you don't need it. Like for, let's say it's a 911 system or it's a comm center for something like that. How long do you need comms to be down in a situation for chaos to really, like 2 minutes, 5 minutes? 5 minutes is an eternity. An active shooter situation. Think of an active shooter situation goes down and you've got no comms and 911's not working for 2 minutes.
With that, with the 911 and the comm center stuff, especially now when, yes, you have redundancy plans, but people aren't used to the redundancy plans where all the old people, all the older dispatchers or whatever that did it essentially, I'm going to say by hand, are now out through attrition. Now you have everybody that's relying on that computer, to help you do the job.
Some of the guys here that they suspect are are perpetrators of this is a couple of groups here. One of the groups that they've thrown out there is the Q movement guys, the anonymous group. But they've got some some Palestinian suspects as well. I think they're called the Dark Storm Team, which is a pro-Palestinian threat group specializing in DDoS attacks. Claims responsibility Monday, according to Checkpoint Research. Again, but that's not from Ukraine. If they're, that would not be a likely from Ukraine in that chance, but they're taking credit for it. There's a couple others out there, but I think what's really, really frightening about this whole thing is that one, they're targeting our free speech. Two, in the same week, they're targeting independent journalists that really are trying to expose right now what is going on, especially with the Epstein list, all the George Soros bad stuff that seems to be crumbling, right? Very scary times for the George Soros regime, I should say, the George Soros regime. It seems like everything that he is building, which he is a known disruptor. Like that's what he was brought here to do. That's what he wants to do. He's taken down literal countries and bragged about it. That's what he does in this world. And it's so obvious that he's doing it. So the fact that anybody votes for anybody that is a George Soros backed candidate, to me, is an enemy of the state. No, I shouldn't say that. That's hyperbolic. But he is an enemy of the state. I do believe that George Soros is an enemy of the state. I don't think he has his best intentions is to make money. His intention is to make money, not the best intentions for America. And he said that. He said that he sees making money more important than human life. I mean, you can go back to all those older interviews where he wasn't as PC as he seems to be now, or his child is, and whatever. All right, let's end it on some JD Vance memes. Anyway, I'm really scared of this cyber attack stuff, so pay attention to all that. Maybe we can get Greg in here sometime, or somebody else that's familiar with this DDoS stuff. Yeah. And do a Patreon episode for us to kind of deep dive that stuff. I'd be interested in learning more about that. Shout out to our Patreon. It's less than $3 a month. Lots of new content going out there, especially every week with me in the TANSEY Time stories, all about how I came about getting the book Pig Latin out there, which I encourage all of you to please go out there and pre-order today. It really, really, really helps me out. Okay. We've got this meme war. This meme war started out with JD Vance after he, I think it was a leftist ploy to kind of demean or deface JD Vance, when he says, you should be thanking us, you should be saying thank you, Zelensky. And so the internet decided, well, we want to make memes so that the future will never actually know what JD Vance looks like. We'll make so many different confusing images of JD Vance that history will never know exactly what JD Vance actually looked like. And I think that's hilarious because conspiracy theorists, they're always blamed, right, for not believing everything that they see in history. Well, this is why, because we're still doing the same shit. Like, you're still trying to retard. Like, I know it's funny and it's jokey, but at the same time, it's like that new movie with Napoleon. Like, it just seems like, go ahead, Jason.
It's some of them. And it's, when you look at, the things that the left say versus the things that the right say and whatever, and these memes come out. I feel bad for JD. I mean, he's a local hometown boy, so I have to have his back. But they fat shame him. They're fat shaming.
Oh, I know. And that's what the left always does too. So like the left will get mad at Trump for doing something, and then right when they get into office, they do the same exact thing. Like, it's the gaslighting on the left is like, it to me, it's just like, oh God, like, you don't hear me saying stop fat shaming people, and then I physically fat shame people. No, I just fucking fat shame them. I don't virtue signal that I don't. And like the left just does this whole like, they make fun of people's brain. They're like, don't make fun of Joe Biden and his brain and his spaghetti brains. That's so mean. But then they make all of the jokes about Donald Trump being dumb or stupid or schizophrenic and all these other stuff. So they do the same thing. But let me go through some of these memes before we get out of here. I think these are hilarious. Let me show you my favorite ones, and Josh is going to show you his favorite one. This one is literally my all-time favorite right here. This is I chimed in with the haven't you people ever heard of ending the goddamn war now. It's a emo edition of JD Vance. I think that's hilarious. And then also we have the Dylan Mulvaney special here where they've got the fat JD Vance face on or is that supposed to be Mulvaney's body, or is that Beyonce? I don't know what fucking body it is. All right, let me see some of your favorites there, Josh.
All right, we got all Vance memes, or all memes are now Vance memes. We definitely have.
Oh, that's a good one. It's for our audio listeners. It's JD Vance superimposed over Leonardo DiCaprio drawing the naked French scene from Titanic. Hilarious.
But not only that, it gets better. The picture he's drawing is himself.
Is himself as a fat JD Vance. Vancera, hilarious. It's an entire Pantera album, but with Vance's face superimposed over all of the Pantera bands. There we go. We got another fat royal JD Vance.
The Emperor.
Like a Commodore.
When X is down for 5 minutes, this is a meme of a Little House on the Prairie, all with JD Vance faces. Keep going. How the AMR medic looks at you when you're transferring care. A big old fat medic. That's hilarious. All the first responders will appreciate that one. An addict looking at a pill bottle. It says JD Vance memes. Here's JD Vance superimposed over Bernie Sanders. I'm once again asking for your JD Vance memes. Oh
boy.
Oh boy. Here we go.
Oh shit.
Now we
Describe
have
that one.
we have JD Vance superimposed over George Floyd.
And my personal favorite.
Yes. Tom from Facebook.
From MySpace.
From MySpace. Superimposed.
That actually looks real. Like that one looks
that
real.
does look absolutely probable in that case. So yeah, very funny memes. I'll leave on this note before we get out of here. Do you think, drop us a comment, follow us on social media, on Instagram, it's Fox News Maine on social media. Make sure you hit and subscribe if you've made it this far show. If you're on audio, which 99% of you are, we need your rating and review. We need it right now. So the podcast is over. Give us a 5-star rating and review. If you've listened this far, we want to make the charts. Please leave us a 5-star rating and review. We'd really, really, really appreciate it. But on social media or anywhere else that you want to get a hold of us, leave us a comment. What do you think about these JD Vance memes? Do you think it only helps JD Vance and being remembered throughout history? Do you think it gives him more power, more popularity? Listen, I think it's flattering. I wish people would do this. When you guys make stupid fucking memes of me, nothing boosts my ego more than when I see that shit. So I can only think that JD Vance's ego must be just absolutely under a glass ceiling right now. What is that?
Oh, from when you were on America. I was trying to find a meme real quick, but I didn't have one.
Didn't have one. There was a bunch on here. I think I went through and deleted, or maybe they're on the failure to snap side of things, but I did have some on there. But yeah, I always do appreciate all you guys' memes. I really do. All right, guys, from myself, make sure you go and follow One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. Deadleg Media is up in the house with me as always, my awesome producer and myself. Check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Patreon for more book stuff. We'll see you guys Friday for the Failure to Stop breakdown. And you guys have got a big sports special. By the way, go back and listen to that Pete Rose episode with Jason and John. Fantastic episode. I should have pushed that sooner in the show. I apologize, Jason. What a fantastic episode. I'm a big Pete Rose, Charlie Hustle fan. So I really enjoyed listening to that. Thank you guys for everything that you do right here on the Fox News Podcast Network. Until we see you guys again for sports and for case breakdowns on Failure to Stop. Guns up, giddy up.
See you.